So let's talk about some cards that might get unnerfed.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
That's right, Blizzard recently teased that in the upcoming standard format rotation, they may revert some cards that are going to be moving to wild format back to their original state despite them being nerfed in the past. So I wanted to cover some of the cards that might be on that list to be reverted and talk about the chances I think they'll have of actually getting unnerfed based on some logic that Blizzard might employ. So for example, right here behind me, we have Dr. Boom Mad Genius. I think far and away the most likely card to be reverted. I've given it a 99% chance here. That's my totally made up chance of being reverted. And I really think that's because this card was the inspiration for the comments that Blizzard made regarding the un-nerf possibilities. We all know Boom went from 7 to 9, helped slow him down, pulled some of that really annoying impact he had on the meta back to reasonable levels. But in wild format, Dr. Boom just doesn't stand out. There's a lot of hero cards, the Death Knight hero cards in particular, often overwhelm, although not necessarily in the case of Warrior. And by comparison, he doesn't really feel all that crazy, even in his unnerfed state when you're dealing with other really powerful hero cards. So from a balance standpoint, would be totally fine to move him back to 7. Beyond that, Blizzard loves numerical symmetry. They love this, 7 mana, 7/7 Dr. Boom thing they keep playing with. And I'm sure it pains them to see that number 9 up there on Dr. Boom's mana cost. I'm sure they really want, from a flavor or feel standpoint, to move this guy back to 7. So this is absolutely the poster child for these unnerfed cards that we're going to see. And I think this one's all but a sure thing that you'll see this go back to 7 when it moves to standard format, which I think, by the way, is really cool that they're willing to update that and make Wild a better and more enjoyable place. So moving on here, we have an interesting one. This is Reckless Experimenter, which you may have forgotten got nerfed in reaction to some Snip Snap combo possibilities where you could reduce Snip Snap to 0 mana and create these kind of like 2-turn kills with like infinite damage via Snip Snap. Blizzard really quickly wanted to reduce that possibility, so they put out this patch to Reckless Experimenter. They would say the cost can't be reduced below 1 to stop that combo potential. And now that that has already been fixed, Echo cards in general now can't be reduced below 1 mana. That was a server-wide patch or a game-wide patch that nothing can actually be below 1 mana that's echoed. This is now needless text in that scenario, but it still limits this card's power level in other ways. Think about things like, say, a Mechathune combo priest, for instance. Now that can't be pulled off because of this text. So Blizzard could very easily revert Reckless Experimenter back to its original state without that cost reduction limitation. And they probably want to do that. This was an oversight in the first place. The only reason I haven't given this one a 100% chance is, frankly, Blizzard may forget. I don't know if this is something that's on the top of the list or they're thinking about a lot, despite some players protesting and asking for this one. So it should happen. There's no reason it shouldn't happen, but nonetheless, only 80% because I think Blizz could just oversee this one again. Moving on here, we're going to get into some cards that I think are considerably less likely, but still possible. Like Raiding Party, for instance, which was pushed to 4 mana because of all the craziness that Rogue could do with some really hyper fast decks, tons of damage with Waggle Pick and Pirates, and Preparation used to reduce this to 0 mana, meaning you could draw multiple Dread Corsairs and a big weapon and just hammer your opponent in the face with way too much pressure and aggression. But the same time Raiding Party got nerfed, Preparation also got nerfed, removing it or reducing it down to a 2 mana discount instead of the full 3 mana discount. So in a way, Raiding Party kind of got dual nerfed simultaneously, and it made this card really, really hard to play. Play rates just plummeted for Raiding Party and that deck in general as well. So I think it's very reasonable that you could see this moved back to its original state. If Preparation hadn't been nerfed, I think you'd have to keep this at 4. But in combination with Prep, this never goes to 0 mana based on that base interaction. And that keeps it, I think, in a slightly healthier state. Plus, Wild format can just do so many crazy things and so many fast things and has a lot of recovery via things like Reno that a faster card like this wouldn't be nearly so problematic. So do I think this one will get reverted? I think there's a chance, actually, if they're planning to go back and revisit some of those nerfs. just like I did, you kind of go down the list of nerfed cards and you say, okay, maybe we went too far with this one, so why not? Let's push it back to 3 mana and see how it goes. So next up here, I have Yoggs Hope's End, which doesn't technically fit into the brief that Blizzard designated of rotating cards. This is clearly already in wild format, but if they're revisiting nerfed cards, they're kind of going down the list just like I did and seeing targets that make sense, well, why not Yoggs? And you may say, wait a minute, Reeves, the text here looks exactly the same. Yes, of course, but in case you've forgotten, Yoggs got nerfed long ago that anytime he's removed from play, if he silences himself or twisting nethers himself, he will stop casting his effect, whereas in the past, he would just keep going. If you had 20 spells banked up, it wouldn't matter if Yogg died, those 20 spells would indeed resolve. And that was problematic way back in the day in some tournament settings, and at a competitive level, it was this Hail Mary that could steal games. Nowadays, I think that's way less likely. We already have cards like Puzzle Box of Yoggs that have this really high cap of 10 spells anyway. So reverting Yogg back to his original state where he just keeps going would probably be fine, and it would actually be super duper fun to go back to those old unlimited Yoggs in a sense. Now, do I think that will happen? No, I gave it a 23% here. What a number that is. And I think Blizzard's just unlikely to go in and tinker with this because they haven't thought about it or they just don't care. That said, it's possible. Go down that list. Maybe Yogg's there. Maybe somebody flips that switch back to where it was. I think it's possible, and I think it'd be really, really cool. So moving on here to Luna's Pocket Galaxy. This one, of course, is rotating, and it's been through quite a lifespan here. It started at 7 mana, and then it got buffed to 5 mana. You guys may remember as a part of the Boomsday buff event, and then it got reverted back to 7 mana again. It got unbuffed, and now I think there's a chance it could actually get un-nerfed. Because in wild format, I don't think a 5 mana Luna's Pocket Galaxy is particularly problematic, and in a lot of instances this thing gets played for much less mana anyway. So although 5 in standard format created a lot of problems with a lower average power level, in wild format where the power level is much higher on average, 5 mana Pocket Galaxy probably just feels absolutely fine. So maybe they go from the unbuff to the un-nerf. Now, do I think that will realistically happen? No, I gave it a 4% chance here, just because there's something to say for tinkering with a card this much. It starts to play with people, their emotions and their memories a little too hard, and Blizzard's probably just like, look, we messed it up. Let's just leave it. We're done with Luna's Pocket Galaxy. Even if it'd be better at 5, we're never touching it again. So although there's a tiny chance, some cards have a 0% chance if they're not on this list, there's a 4% chance, but still I think super duper unlikely. That said, that wraps it up here for my list of cards I think could be un-nerfed. That said, I'm curious, were there any I left off this list that you think should be reverted back to their original state, whether they're rotating or not? Like, which nerf do you think went way too far, it's ruined your fun, and you'd like to see that card restored to its original state? Share that in the comments below. In the meantime, we'll wait on the news for these future un-nerfs and rotations and Hall of Fame cards. Who knows what's on the horizon? This is always a really fun time in Hearthstone. Plus, we're not too far away from an expansion announcement, I think. So it's going to be a good time. That said, thanks much for watching this video, and until next time, game on.